Hello everyone, welcome to Janet's Craft Corner. Today I'm going to paint the Hello Spring um, Interchangeable Insert, and this one will give us the chance to do some gradients work and show you how to do some of that, so that'll be nice. I'm going to start before I get it all on the board. Usually I start these with the paintboard done, but I kind of want to show you how I go about getting the paintboard here. So the first thing I do obviously is put the tape on the board, which you can see is there. But then what I try to do is I put the insert together, or whatever file I'm working on, piece it all together off to one side, and then pull my pieces to show what I need to do with them and separate them by color. So I'm going to start with my daisies. Those are all white with a yellow border on the outside of them. And because I'm going to do some gradient with the yellow border, I'm going to space them out a little bit more than I normally would. And there, I think that's all the white we've got on there. So then we'll work on some other pieces as we go. So these two pieces are in the bright pink, and I'm basically kind of painting this the way I've got it painted on the websites. You can obviously change the colors up, but those two pieces are in a bright pink, and then the butterfly has that bright pink down the middle, and it's one of the ones that's going to help us. We're going to learn how to do the gradient on it. We're going to do gradient there, and we're going to do gradient on these daisies. And then I think that maybe, oh no, wait, one of the pieces to the umbrella is the bright pink. The umbrella is the part that kind of throws me off because all those pieces are so different. Okay, then the green, this one is a green. Yes, I pulled two, but that one is the green, and that's the only green I'm going to do. This one is yellow, so I'm going to put it over here where it's close to these white ones that are going to get the yellow edging. And then our birds are all a light blue, so we're going to put them all together with their wings. And this little spacer that has the little X in it, you don't need to paint that one. Okay, so then we've got the next one's yellow. Then we have a purple piece for our umbrella, and we had this is purple. Our birdhouse in the one I'm doing is purple, so we get a purple piece for the umbrella, and that piece is purple. I think that's, oh no, and the Hello Spring words are purple. Then the last piece of the umbrella is a bright blue, which we don't have anywhere else, so we'll put it here. We've got some black and some gray to do. Got some on the piece here, but we'll pull some pieces off too. These are black. This one, and these two. And this is gray. And our bloom is bright pink, so we'll put it up with our bright pink piece. Okay, and then these pieces, like I said, I think I'm going to do this in the lighter blue because I don't like the way it is in the green. And then we'll keep this the bright pink, and this has a little bit of the gray, a little bit of black, and the pink of the boots, and the little gray at the bottom. So let's see what we can do and get started here. So we're going to start, as I almost always do, with white because it takes a few extra coats sometimes. So we're going to start with the white, and we're going to use it to paint our daisies up here. Daisies are pretty small, so I'm going to use the sponge method of painting them. So get one of my little sponges pieces here and paint it out with the white. These inserts are great because, number one, they're not super expensive, but they give you the ability to have something new and seasonal pretty much year round. I mean, I think I have about every month plus a few extra ones that get used at special times. So they really give you an ability to have a nice collection without a whole lot of expense and without taking up a whole lot of space, either in the decorating or in the storage, because you're only storing like the inserts probably 12, let's say maybe 15 if you've got enough special ones, inserts per base, I guess, because if you're like me, I have two bases. I have one on my mantle and one on a shelf. But, it works with those pretty well in either anyway. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our bright pink, and this piece is bright pink. So we're gonna make it, we're gonna paint it. And then we've got these two pieces that are bright pink, and the center of this is bright pink. So I'm gonna show you how to get that done. Okay, so we need a little bit of this because we're gonna do, and I'm using, this is Ceramcoat Chic Pink. I'm gonna use, first of all, a brush to do this part. Okay, and then this piece of the umbrella, I can probably do with the brush. And it looks like this color's going on light enough that I'm going to want to do a second coat of it. And then for the butterfly, the gradient here, I'm going to use a small so that I don't get too much outside of where I want, but I'm going to go a little ways onto the edges of where the pink, the light pink and the purple are going to come, so that they can then blend when I start to do the whole thing, once I get to the point where I have all of them done. So just kind of go there, but by using a small one, I'm keeping that line across there pretty thin. Okay, and then we'll use our sponge to do our letters here. And then, like I said, this is going on, bright colors, light colors. Sometimes just really have to have two coats, and this is going to be one of those times where this is going to have a second coat. This file is one of the most complicated inserts we have. Because there are so many little pieces that build it all up to make it look right. I love this file for spring. My favorite spring one is the spring tulips, when it's done in the more natural, where you only do the tulips in the one light color, and you do a lot of stained pieces, faux stained pieces. But this is my second favorite. Okay, that takes care of our pink. Now, it takes care of all of our bright pink. I'm going to get a couple things on here before I forget about them. So I'm going to do the gray, because there's no gray on these pieces, but there is on here. Actually, I'm going to do the light pink first, because the gray is on there. Okay, so the light pink, we're going to use, this is half of our gradient here. Or a third of our gradient for our butterfly. So we're going to opened and made a mess, but we're going to put our light pink out here, and we're going to start by painting our boots light pink. They've got little dots on them that I am going to keep, but those are just, I'm going to paint over them, so I don't care if they show through as much. I mean, I don't want to be able to see them enough to paint, but I don't care. And I just want to, I don't have to go off the top edge here, because there's going to be the edging pieces that go on there, so I don't have to worry about that. So I can do this with a brush. I don't have to do it with the sponge, since the dots don't have to show through enough for you guys, for whoever's, not necessarily you guys, but whoever's seeing it. When I'm done, they're not going to make a big difference, because I'm going to have painted them in. There's a line down the center that separates the two boots. That is just a highlight an engrave highlight on the file, so I do need to clean it, but I'll use the X-Acto knife on it in a little bit. And then the other half of our butterfly, or not half, third of our butterfly is that pink. And so I'm going to cut it under sponge because I don't have any more little ones. And we're going to just get our sponge again, and we're going to just come across, and we're going to kind of overlap just a little, not a lot, but we're going to kind of overlap a little with our dark pink. And that's how we're kind of creating that gradient from with those three colors. And by using the sponge, that makes that line not a hard line. It makes it a soft line. So there's what we need there. And we're good over here. So we're going to use, we don't want to let this dry too much before we use our X-Acto knife on it. That can go in there. We're going to use our X-Acto knife and clear out that little separator down the center here. And usually when you do have these kind of things, you can get the X-Acto knife, the dots are not helping, but get the X-Acto knife to sit in that crevice and just come right down and follow it. It's usually pretty easy to do. This one curves, so that makes it a little harder, but it's still, as long as you stay sitting in that crevice there, you'll curve with it. Okay, so that takes care of that part. Then, let's see. Let's go ahead and finish up on here. Let's see if we can finish up on here. We're going to go with the blacks. There's a lot of black highlights on here, so I'm going to do a little bit of black. Not a lot of black over here, so I'll probably jump over there and do that black too. And we're going to put our black paint right over here. And we're just going to use this kind of small brush because we don't have lots of stuff, but it's brushable. It's all brushable. We've got the base down here, the I guess stand, and it's got a couple of little grooves in it that kind of help give it some dimension. So you want to try to keep those as clear as possible. They're not going to be clear, but you want to keep them so you can see the detail in them. And our birdhouse is going to come across the top there, so it's okay to go up a little bit further than we are doing. And then the handle of our umbrella, and again our pieces are going to go up here to the cover where the top and bottom of our lines are, so it doesn't matter that we go from a little bit. Okay, and then these two little, or I guess there's three pieces here. This is part of the roof of the birdhouse, and my birdhouse is purple, so my roof is black and kind of a gray. That's what I like. I like the way it came out the last time. So, when I do these, sometimes I adjust as I do them multiple times. I have to do at least one whenever I decide to publish a file. So to give you guys an example, I really encourage you to use your own color schemes, but sometimes it's hard when you can't see what any of it looks like. So I try really hard to have at least one painted version up for you so that you can see what it looks like when it's painted and get an idea of how you want to paint yours. Takes care of our blacks. And these two have a little line across them too. It doesn't matter whether you can see that. It won't show up very much underneath the stuff that's on here. But it helps you line them up. It helps you know which one goes in which one. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm going to go back over here and finish these pieces up. This is where I have trouble sometimes. I forget to do these little pieces. We're going to go to our gray. And we have one piece of gray here, but we have then a lot of gray on this part. And this gray this one here is kind of thin. So I'm going to use a thin flat brush to do it because I want to stay under that line. I want this to be pretty clean. So I'm going to use a thin flat brush to give myself a pretty good edge there. You can usually paint along your grid with that pretty clean. And then my watering can is gray. So I'm gonna, again, we're going under this birdhouse here, so we can just kind of paint up how far we want. And this bird will cover that edge, so we can again paint up however far we want. And be a little careful about our edges around the, like this, around the center here. Oh, I haven't been telling you the colors I used, have I? I stopped, sorry. Let's see, I told you the bright pink. The light pink is Ceramcoat Hydrangea Pink. And then obviously black is I use lamp black, which is a full cart paint, but black is black. They're pretty much all blacks. Blacks and whites are pretty consistent across all brands. And then this gray is called Drizzle Gray. It's kind of a light gray, which I kind of wish I pulled a little bit lighter gray, but I've already got this going, so it'll work. I could put another coat over the top of it to lighten it, but I think this is fine. But it's a Ceramcoat also, but it's called Drizzle Gray. And I missed these two pieces that are bright pink. I kind of have my sides messed up there. But I used a sponge for bright pink and it's still laying here, so we'll just go back and get them. Okay, these guys are all light blue, so we're going to paint all of them our light blue color. This one is Ceramcoat Blue Heaven. And I really like to use a brush instead of a sponge on the birds because of the beaks. I like to try to avoid the beaks so that when I come back with the yellow, I'm not trying to go over whatever color bird I made it. So we're going to try to do that. Started. So I'm going to start kind of out in the middle, and then I'm going to come up and do right along that line. It doesn't matter if my eye really truly shows very much. I just need it enough for me to paint a spot there. Yes, with everything, you get better edges, or better looking edges, I guess is the way of putting it, if you paint from the middle of your individual piece to the outside. Not always an easy thing to do, because sometimes they have, you know, edges that go in opposite directions, that come in between these two here, but it's usually pretty doable, and it keeps the sides of your pieces as clean as possible, which makes them look better on your assembled piece. These have some score lines in the wing, but they're thick enough that they almost always show through without trouble. That one's actually going to give me trouble, I think. But again, because they're a pretty straight line, we'll just use our X-Acto knife to clean them out a little bit. Then we've got our bird here. We're going to go along that line. Try not to go over it, because we're going to have our yellow. That is his beak. I love the crafting process because of the creativity it allows you. You start with an idea, usually a picture, and like in your case with my stuff, there's usually a painted version on the website that shows you how I painted it, and that gives you an idea. But you can adjust as you want. If you like cardinals, you want your birds to be red, then paint them red. And if you like your birdhouses to be kind of bland, I guess, so they don't, kind of more earthy, and I don't like the word bland, more earth toned. Then paint it, do a faux brown, a faux stained brown on it. That would be pretty, I think. Now that I think about it, I should have thought about that. I think I'll stick with what I've got, but that would be pretty, a Okay, we're gonna do yellow now. For the yellow, I am using Crocus Yellow by Ceramcoat, and I have one piece of the umbrella, and then I'm going to do some highlights on the daisy. Umbrella piece, I'm going to use just a regular brush. I was talking about how the different brands, I know Hobby Lobby carries Folk Art and Decor Americana in most places, and Folk Art is now what I use the most, because I used to use the Ceramcoat the most, but because my Hobby Lobby quit carrying it, it's harder for me to get. I do have a Michaels and a Joann's, they're just a little further away. And then our birds have yellow beak. Okie doke, that's our three main pieces of yellow, and we may need our brush to come back with those. But then our daisies, we're going to kind of basically put a gradient on the outside edge of them. So I've gotten some stuff loaded. It's just got little chunks in it. It's too old, and I'm going to use the way I've loaded the sponge. I'll pull it up here a little bit. I've got less on this side, more on this side. I normally would have probably left the one side almost totally white, but it'll be okay. So we're going to come along our edges and just kind of tip our edges with it. It just gives the daisy a little bit more definition and makes it stand out a little bit more. Sometimes the reason you use one brand or over another is there's just not a good substitute in whatever your favorite brand is. Like I said, my favorite brand was and is Ceramcoat. They tend to be a little thicker and go on a little cleaner than the other two. Not substantially, so it's not like you have to really worry about it. Just enough, and I've got a little bit of black on that. Just enough that I like the Ceramcoat better. But I no longer can get them easily, so I'm now pretty much using anything that, or once I run out of a Ceramcoat color, I'm pretty much getting the Folk Art color equivalent of it. And that master paint list not only will tell you what all my colors that I use, and that doesn't necessarily help you because I use lots of different colors. Kind of got to guess which one is the yellow I used in that one, but the green piece that I'm going to use is for this piece. It is Folk Art's Lime Green. There's our green piece. Now, it started to go on light, but it thickened up, and I think we're fine. And then we've got a bright blue piece up here. Oh, we missed this with our gray. Did we use a sponge with the gray? No, we'll just use a sponge with this part of the gray. Or gray dries over here. This piece was gray. And this piece is big enough you could probably use a brush on, but sometimes it's just quicker and easier to use a sponge. And you can use a sponge almost like a brush. You don't have to bounce it. You can use it kind of in a brushing stroke. And that sometimes is the easiest thing to do. I'm all for the ease. Enjoy the craft. It's supposed to be stress relief. Enjoy it. Let's not stress over it. Let's not make it any harder than it needs to be. There's a little piece of paper right there. Let's make sure it stays off the piece of wood. Okay, there, we got that done. Okay, now then we'll go back and we'll do our bright blue. And we're using Ceramcoat Mediterranean for this. No, and we don't, we're just doing one little piece of these, so we don't need very much. As you can tell by my palette, I always end up with too much of anything. No, I was going to do this in the light blue, wasn't I? That's what I decided I would try that with. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, light blue for this. I know I have my bright blue out already, but my light blue is starting to thicken up because it's been sitting there a little bit. So let's get this one done before it gets so we can't use it. I think that'll make it. I used lime green last time. I just didn't like the way the pink popped against the lime green. See, that one, I really did pretty good at getting very little paint there on that one out of my bottle. But, you know, it takes so little for most of this because you have so few, you know, you only have 1 or 2 pieces in each color to make it, that makes your project more interesting, but it means it takes very little paint. So it's hard to get just the right amount out of those bottles. And then I think purple may be our only color left. I see a spot where we didn't get enough black. We should have done we did the stem here of our umbrella, but there's a little tip right here. So I'm just going to get us a little bit of black and do the little tip. Well, it uses extra brushes to go back and forth because you don't want to pull them out unless you pull them out of the water. And I don't usually. I usually let them stay in there. Okay, then our lavender, kind of these 3 pieces are kind of a lavender color. So, oh, I know what I forgot to do. I didn't put my dots in my daisies. And to do that, I'm just using the end of a brush and stirring it around in there. And you want to dip it in the paint, but not touch the palette. And then push it hard onto the center where you're putting the dot. And these ones in the very, very middle, the bigger ones are going to take a few dots to fill them out. And that's okay, just fill it out. Use your stylus. This is kind of like a stylus. Use the end of your brush like a stylus. You can get styluses that come in a lot of different sizes. And I could have grabbed a thicker brush, but these are thicker handle brushes. You know what I'm saying? But these 2 down here are small, and then I would have had to have one. Again, I'm just using several little dots to make one big dot here. Okay, so then I'm just going to use a wet wipe to wipe off the end of that brush so that I don't have to. Okay, now we're going to try the purple. And I've got Purple Heather from Ceramcoat. I think I used a brighter purple last time, but this just kind of spoke to me when I was looking at the paints, so that's what we're using. Okay, we're going to use a brush to do these 2 pieces. We'll use a sponge to do this, and then we'll do the dots on the main one. So since I'm going to use a sponge here, I'm going to change my mind and just use a sponge here so that my lines kind of show up better. I think that would be a better choice. And see, that keeps those lines showing through better than if I had used a brush. If I'd have used a brush, it would have still worked, and I could have used the X-Acto knife as I needed, but this keeps them much better, and I don't end up needing the X-Acto knife usually. And then we'll get our Hello Spring words in the purple. And the sponge technique is great, on words and for 2 things. For not filling in holes like in words, like that E and that in the hello. If I tried to use a brush, I'd end up with globs in it and it'd be hard to keep it clean, the inside of the E. It also is good for keeping the edges looking consistent. They still are going to get a little paint on the edges, but it'll be like a consistent line around them, so it looks better than the brush method if you can't get the brush, if it's not thick enough to get the brush laying in the right directions all the time. And then we're going to do the bottom half of our butterfly, and again we're just still using the sponge, and I've got a bigger sponge than I used up there, but I'm on the bottom so I can just make sure it sticks off the edge and do across there. And on our butterfly, our two little tips of the antenna in the middle should have been black, not that pink. So we'll go back and get them. Just make sure I do it really light and really careful with the sponge. That sponge is I probably would have done it with a brush if I had done it when I did the first. I did black, because the brush is thinner than the sponge and would have less chance of going onto the pink edges where it's not supposed to be. This works. And down the middle, we've got a piece down here that's black that's going to go there to do our body of our butterfly. Okay, and then we need to do our dots over here. And again, we're just going to use the end of a brush. I'm going to use a thicker brush end. That's a good one. And then we're going to dip in our paint, and we'll try not to touch the bottom of our paint palette. And then just come and touch it wherever there's a little dot. And my brush is a little thicker than the dots themselves on here, which is probably a little better than being a little thinner, because that way it fills in the whole dot. And just work our way down one at a time. Usually, depending on what you're doing, you usually have to dip your brush every time. Because if you don't, you'll have uneven dots. There are a couple places where I do highlighting and I won't dip my brush every time because I want it to be somewhat uneven. Along this edge, I'm making sure I'm staying on one side or the other with my dot. Don't go across the line there because that's two different boots and their dots wouldn't normally line up. And along here where it's showing me about a half dot, but it's going to be under this bird is why. And so I'm going to put the full dot on so that it just is there completely. It doesn't matter how I line that bird up. And that bird, the other thing we're doing kind of new, because I don't think we've done a spacer lately, is a spacer on this one, because that bird is sitting up above part of him is sitting above the birdhouse, along the edge of the birdhouse, but part of him is over these boots, and the boots, when you're doing layers of the wood, they come out shorter because they don't have any wood on top of them. Whereas the birdhouse has a layer of wood on top of it. So we're going to put a spacer in there down closer to the boot to help hold that up, so we make sure that it's not sitting at a clunky angle and doesn't break off. This probably is the first one I've ever had that I've had a little bit of trouble with it breaking. And it's because of the size of that stem to the umbrella and the weight of the top piece, the way it's layered. So just know that going forward so that you store this one, you're careful when you store it. So there's our dots on our boots. And let's see, that's 90% of what we want to do. I need to do some little black dots for the eyes of the birds. So I need to find me a brush that's got a little tint. I could use a marker for that, but I think we'll just use this. We've got plenty of black paper here, so we'll just use this. Make sure that's not in the book out yet. So now we're at the point of assembly, and because we've been going for a good 30 minutes here, I probably will, actually I know I will just loose assemble it for you, and I will glue it afterwards, because loose assembly takes less time, but it lays it all out so you can see what it all looks like when you're done. So we'll work our pieces off. I'm going to start with the bigger pieces. So the birdhouse, it goes in the center, and then our two circles, they do have lines and dots on them as if they're lined up with the piece. So you kind of want to keep them so those lines and dots keep lined up. But it's not real important. They're the same size, and they kind of end up being covered up by stuff. So our butterfly, our butterfly ends up covering up a lot of that. So our butterfly goes here. So you don't see the dots as much, and it helps him stand out. And then he's got his body goes on him, that makes his body in the middle so that he has the right. It's really hard to paint that if you don't use the cut piece. I've done it before, but it's not easy. Okay, our umbrella is always the challenging piece, for me at least, because you got to make sure you get the pieces in the right order. It doesn't matter, obviously, what color your stripes are on the umbrella. Mine are going to end up being different on this one than they were on the last one because I did that pink one. I did the wrong one pink, but as long as it doesn't matter, you could do them all the same color. You could do them every other color. You could have, it'd be like a blue and white stripe or something. That's another way that this would be cute. But I like all the colors in the spring. That's what I like about spring. So I like using all the color I can use. And then our daisies, we're going to put one of them up on our, the bigger ones at least. One of them up on our umbrella. And one of them here on our can. Okay, then our birds. I'm just going to be careful because my dots from my centers and my birds are still probably a little wet. Dots take a little longer to dry. One bird goes lined up there, and where's his? And then remember I told you about the spacer in this other bird? We're going to put our spacer here to hold that bird up a little bit. So let's pull him off and get his wing. Because he would drop down, his back half would drop down if he was half on that and half on that. And you can tell where he lines up by the piece underneath. And then we have this border that goes up here. And I knocked my little green piece off. I got flustered there. Okay, and then that's our topper. And then our license, or our tailgate, that says Hello Spring. And we're going to put some, you know what, I'm going to make that part stand out a little bit. I think it may be the bright blue. And I'm just going to use the sponge and do my bright blue, that part there, a bright blue, it makes him stand out just a little bit so he is the dot on the eye. And then our little bitty bird goes over here to kind of give us some more dimension on our tailgate. And then our other two daisies go on here. Again, watch your centers because dots are the ones that take the longest to dry. Make sure you don't put your fingers in the middle. That's how I got that purple on my fingers a little bit ago that I got on my black. So those two are there. And then our tailgate is just quick and simple with the word blue on it. And there you go. Oh, I like that much better than I like the green that I did the last time. So there we go. We've got our Hello Spring kit done, our Hello Spring insert done, and it's ready to go on our, for me, it's a truck real soon because it's almost spring. So I'm glad you could join us. Hope you enjoyed the painting and that you join us again soon.